Thank you for joining us and welcome to another edition of Answers Network. I'm your host, Alan Cardoza. And if this is your first time watching or listening to the show, know that every Monday from 11 a.m. to noon Pacific time, this show will bring on special guests that can inspire, educate, and in some cases entertain, while bringing answers and options to making our lives happier, healthier, and more successful. Now, you could all do me a really big favor. I'd really appreciate it if you could forward one of our shows to your social media groups, because sharing my show and others like it will focus on improving health, happiness, education, and success. And know that it's just one powerful way that we can make a positive influence in the world together. Now, many of you, either if your friends, family, or faithful listeners, know that my favorite books to read are thrillers, where I also come away having learned something that I didn't know before picking up the book. Our guest's latest book does that and more. So Lynn Hightower is the internationally best-selling author of numerous thrillers, including the Sonora Blair and Lena Padgett detective series. Her novels have been included in the New York Times list of notable books and the London Times bestseller lists. She has won the Seamus Award for the Best First Private Eye Novel and a W.H. Smith Fresh Talent Award. Lynn teaches master novel classes in the UCLA Extension Writing Program and works as a manuscript consultant or writing coach for novelists. Her latest novel, The Beautiful Risk, will be released August 1st, 2023, which, if you're listening live, is tomorrow. It's an intelligent and provocative standalone thriller. It's a story of the collateral damage of grief and the adrenaline of revenge. It's the story of corruption, greed, and eco-terrorism. And above all, it's a romantic suspense story, a love story, a tale of courage and of mending a broken heart. It's a complex tale about a woman desperate to uncover the truth, and its co-star is a wonderful and heroic German Shepherd. Now, getting back to our author, she and her own very, very good German Shepherd, Leah, live in Kentucky in a small Victorian cottage with, of course, a writing parlor. Lynn, welcome to Answers Network.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be talking to you today.
Well, it is my pleasure. And I have been reading the book, and I'm going to be very honest, I haven't gotten to the end of it, but it's kind of on purpose because I don't want to give away anything. There's some very interesting twists, and so I want to make sure that none of my questions give away anything, because it's one of those that I'm so enjoying it, and I know that I probably wouldn't like it if I knew too much going in. So
I'll try not to blurt anything out.
What's that?
I'll try not to blurt anything out.
Well, what makes this a little bit different for our show is we do a lot of things that's based on more of a self-improvement type of thing, where we're focusing more on things where people can help themselves. And what I liked about the book is that I was getting some of this at the same time being thrilled and understanding and feeling the suspense as it was building. So for somebody who has loved for many, many years reading for pleasure, a book like yours allows me to do both, read for pleasure and for knowledge. And to me, it doesn't get much better than that.
That's good to hear, because that's the whole point of writing the book. You know, it's something that I feel passionate about that fuels me forward, but you're going to get a great read along the way.
Yes. Well, now, before we get too much to the book, share a little bit about you, your background, and when you realized that writing was a passion and was going to be your career.
So I started my first novel in the 5th grade. And
wait, did you say in the 5th grade?
I did say in the 5th grade.
I love that.
It was called Karen McDonald and the Mystery of the Haunted Castle, naturally. And you know, it was more fun to work on a novel than to pay attention during geography and math. So I usually had my pages stuck in a book. I either had a book stuck in a book or my pages stuck in a book. And of course, my teacher caught me and she was thrilled. She
Oh,
said, she said, would you be comfortable with me reading some of what you've written? And I thought, I'll say yes if you won't get, if I'm not going to get in trouble, why, yes, I'm going to say yes. We'll go with this. And she was so lovely. She read them and she brought them back to me and she said, these are wonderful. I know you're going to be a fabulous novelist someday, which is a very nice thing to hear when you're in the 5th grade and dodging your math class. And what she did was she started a class newspaper. And there was a continuing story, a serial. And every week I would write another episode of this continuing serial. So, I mean, that's teaching at its best, isn't it?
it really is. Do you remember this teacher's name?
Miss Crute.
Miss Crute.
Miss Crute.
Yes.
Yes, she was very strict, by the way. So I thought I was going to get in enormous trouble.
Well, I love to give credit if it's at all possible. And, and we have a lot of teachers that listen to the show because many of them will write in, they'll send in questions and they'll say, I'm teaching in the middle of the day. So here's my question. Can you please ask this? And I'll listen tonight or I'll listen, tomorrow night or something and to get the answer. So I love teachers like this. This to me is what teaching is about.
She
kudos.
She took me seriously.
Yes.
She didn't patronize me. She didn't pat me on the head. She took me seriously. She read the pages and then she said, let's give you an outlet for writing fiction. But it was a newspaper that the whole class was working on and it was a whole class project. And I think that's pretty fabulous.
It really is. Well, let's jump into the book because I've got a lot of questions.
Okay.
And I don't know how much research you did on me, but I'm an international detective. That's my real job.
I love that so much.
And so as an international detective, what I was I'm intrigued by what must have been intense research on your novels. Yes. So tell us some of the topics and plot points that you researched, starting with this novel.
With this novel, I was looking at climate change, which always involves big corporations and governments sucking up funds and actually not using them for legitimate climate change. And, it's called greenwashing. We all have heard that term before. Yep. I was also very struck by a speech at the UN where someone said, we are relying on technology that does not exist right now. And that's not going to get us anywhere. That really impressed me. It just seemed so logical, such an utterly brilliant point to make. So both of those things were the bottom line of the novel. And I found in my research, which was so fascinating, this NGO that was pretty blatantly a spy NGO, okay, and they make it their business to hold governments and corporations accountable for the promises they make on climate change. I have no idea what they do if people, are not accountable, but it gave me an idea for my own spy organization in France, run by a very ruthless Madame Renard. And she and my heroine, Junie Lagarde, do not like each other. She's Parisian. Mm-hmm. And where is this Kentucky? Is this on Google Maps? And we get that a lot here. And but they each have something the other one wants. And I had a lot of fun having them not get along.
While I was doing some of my research so that I felt that I could come up with some intelligent questions. And so I started typing in things like controversial eco-terrorism,
Yes.
just things like that, just trying to find out more of controversy, because I saw that kind of that's where you were going in this,
Yes.
is what you're exposing.
Yes.
And actually, this was just yesterday, and a particular video popped up, and it was a video of some of the U.S. hearings, and it's John Kerry, who's supposed to be our climate change czar, and so he's being asked a question in regards to flying to these events in a private jet.
Yes.
And so he gets so upset, and he is berating the other congressman that's asking him the question. He says, "I am so tired of this." He says, "I can't believe." He says, "We do not have a private jet. I do not fly anywhere with a private jet. And I'm so upset with this. And this is so wrong that you even focus on this." It cuts. So he does this whole thing. The congressman pulls out a piece of paper and says, "So do you want to keep that testimony? Because I want to put into evidence this article that says, due to enormous pressure, John Kerry sells his private jet."
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "This is dated February of 2023 or whatever it was." And
Wow.
anyway, and so, but he goes, "That wasn't mine. That's my wife's."
Oh, right. That makes it all better.
Well, then that answers everything. And then they go, "Well, let's play back what you said." And they play it back and they go, "That's funny. You said we. And now you're saying I don't have one, but my wife has one." So they said, "So have you ever flown in it to one of these things?" He goes, "Well, maybe once, But anyway, so I started thinking about that as you were saying about what all the money that's being taken in for this, but we know it's really not going to where it should be.
No, and I ran across a really startling statistic last week, which was that about 90% of emissions come from about 10% of the population, and they are the wealthy billionaires, the 1%.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it is them. So
Yeah.
that is shocking to me. It just seemed like it would be really easy to shut that down.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. And
Yeah.
and again, as I'm going to talk sort of to the audience. So,
Sure.
I in the very beginning, I talked about the fact that these are my favorite kind of books. And my reason for that is that you can learn something, and I challenge everybody out there, as you're reading something like this, Google it, check it out, because what you'll find is that the really good authors like this, they're doing their research and they're giving you some tidbits, and they're just putting enough out there for you to be able to take a look and go, "Yeah, let me check that out. Let me go in a little deeper." So it's nice to be able to read for pleasure, but at the same time, know that you are learning something, and if it interests you, run with it, because there's a lot of good information out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, so let's go back to Junie, okay? Because so for those out there, she is the heroine of the novel.
Yeah.
But she's a very complex character. I mean, she's passionate, she's talented in a variety of different ways. She ends up being incredibly courageous, but she's also hearing impaired with a condition called cookie bite hearing loss. Something until this time, and I love how in the book you explain what it is, I knew nothing about. So which parts of this fascinating character did you pull from yourself?
Quite a few. Now,
Good.
Junie Lugard is my hero, and I only wish I was half as cool as she is because, I mean, I love her. She's so fabulous and she's so fun. And I have a cookie bite hearing loss. It's hereditary, and I have always kept it secret because it just made me feel vulnerable, right?
Hmm.
And I finally decided I'm going to give this hearing loss to Junie, and that means I'm coming out of the closet, right? And it was really fun because I was able to tell people why someone with a hearing loss does not like to wear hearing aids. They're awfully uncomfortable. They just are. I was able to explain that turning the volume up doesn't work because what you're going to get is the refrigerator in the next room and not the conversation. And a
Hmm.
cookie bite hearing loss is at the top of the sound range. I have very acute hearing. At the bottom of the sound range, I have very acute hearing. Birdsong wakes me up in the morning if there's a bird 2 blocks away, and I go to sleep to the sound of train horns and wheels on the track, which I love. But the conversation in between, I have to work really, really hard to hear, really hard. And um, and I had a lot of fun letting Junie let people know what was okay to do and not okay to do. And I found that when I was honest about it, that the problem was how I was looking at it. Most people are very kind, they do not care. I live in the distillery district, and I go to this fabulous Ukrainian coffee shop and write every morning. And they always call your coffee order out, and I would never hear them, and I'd be writing, and I never would get my coffee. And what upset them, and one day they came to my table and said, "But you never get your coffee. Don't you like our coffee?" I said, "No, I love your coffee. I cannot hear you when you call my name, and I forget about it when I'm writing." And so that was, the terrible thing. I finally confessed. And what happened was every day they bring me my coffee, which is so nice. They're busy. I'm like, well, wow, why didn't you just admit this, 10 years ago?
Well, and that's what I was thinking is that,
Yeah, own it.
most people are wonderful.
They
And
really are.
yeah, and if you share something, most of us want to help you come up with a way to make it work. And in this case, it was to bring something. And it might have been, they might have said, well, do you hear bells better? Maybe if we just ring a bell, that one's for you. Who knows? But it's that collaboration of coming up with something that works that I
Yeah.
think is beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then I have a German Shepherd who's my hearing dog, and she, in the way of German Shepherds and hearing dogs, they're very reactive to sound. So she trained herself, and asked the trainer I work with. She coaches me on working with my dog. We're very much a positive reinforcement, doggy rights people, and my doggy has many rights. And she said she is alerting you. She knows you have a hearing loss. She's telling you what you need to do and what to hear that you're not aware of. And so we're going to shape this behavior. And it's a little scary. There were so many things going on behind me and around me that I wasn't aware of because I couldn't hear it. And now I know because I'm going to get a nudge on the leg, and she'll lock eyes with me, and she's like, "Hey, man on the roof, he looks okay. Just notice." And I'm like, "Got it." And if something she doesn't like, then I mean, she's a German Shepherd. There's going to be a big rough bark. So she's pretty fabulous.
Yeah, and I'm also one who had for many years a German Shepherd,
So
a,
you know,
a tall black female German Shepherd
yeah,
that was very protective,
yes,
and because she was taller than most, and that's as you described, um, Junie's dog, or Leo,
yeah.
being taller than most, that that people think that it's a or they ask you if it's a wolf, and I had people all the time say, is that a dog or a wolf? Um, so I could relate, and as I was reading this and stuff, it touched my heart because it made me think of my own.
Yeah, and Leo was my first German Shepherd, and he was very tall, and he had a sort of that gray marbled coat, and he looked like a wolf. and people would cross to the other side of the street, or police officers love German Shepherds, and they would. At first, it made me nervous, but then I got used to it. They would pull their patrol car up and look out the window and go, "Is that a wolf? No. Dutch Shepherd? No. Belgian Shepherd? No. German Shepherd. Gotcha." They're just so shepherd obsessed, and he had that beautiful walk that I describe in the novel, where it's almost like dressage with horses. I call it, you call it the float.
Yeah,
and it's beautiful.
It's regal, sort of regal.
And we would walk in sync, and he would keep an eye on everything. His swivel to the right, swivel to the rest, check behind me, and just keep walking. And, it took several years before he settled into the float. Before that, he was a young adolescent maniac. But it was such a pleasure to walk with him when we were so in sync and we would get into the float. Yeah.
I because I had so many people ask me, and one of the times in which I went to the vet, and the vet said, it was a checkup, and the vet said, I can run a DNA check or a genetics test, and I can tell you if your dog has wolf. And I said, let me think about it. And I did a little bit of research, and I found an article in, I want to say it was Riverside or San Bernardino, California, where a neighbor, that the dog barked more than the neighbor wanted and stuff. So the neighbor had said that they thought that the dog looked like a wolf. So the neighbor told, the police or whatever, that they have a wolf. And so the police or whomever anyway did a DNA test and came back a very, very small portion of a wolf. And so they took the dog away.
Oh, that kills me. Yeah, yes. You have to be careful with shepherds.
But as soon as I heard that, I went back to the next time I saw the doctor. He said, "Do you want me to do that?" No.
No.
No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to know. And I don't want anybody running that test.
No, you don't want anybody running that test. And, shepherds get a lot of attention, and Leo did. But whenever I moved into a neighborhood, if I saw someone that looked worried about him, I would go to their door later in the day and I would say, "Hey, saw you looking at my shepherd. And I just want you to know he's well trained. He's very sweet. He's always going to be leashed. Is there anything I can do to make you comfortable with him?"
That's wonderful.
I always got excellent reactions to that. And I would always end the conversation with, "And if you have an intruder and you need help, I'll bring him down." And they were like, "Got it." And so
here's my number.
No, we would put, change numbers in the phones, and I meant it. I meant it. And so, because I think big dogs like that can be scary. And if people don't know your dog is well trained and isn't aggressive, then they should know, because I'm walking down that street every day and I don't want them to look out and worry. I want them to look out, and then everybody in the neighborhood knows his name. "Oh, that's Leo. Oh no, that's Leo. He's fine." And I just think it means he is receiving good energy from everybody around him, and it means he's not at risk from somebody who's worried about him. Yeah.
All right. We've got a couple of questions that are coming in from listeners, and these are going to have to do with more of writing. In other words,
sure,
how things get written and stuff like this. But I'm also looking at the clock, so we're going to take a break. But when we come back, for anybody out there listening, if you have questions in your mind about how do you find the time? How do you do these things? There's a couple of questions that have just come in. We're going to ask that. So stay with us. You're listening to or you're watching Answers Network.
Conflict International are experts at uncovering the truth. Our specialist team has decades of experience in providing a range of bespoke investigation and intelligence services to companies and individuals. Whether you need professional screening or background checks of employees, due diligence of potential clients or business partners, asset tracing services, or surveillance, Conflict International has a rapid response team on hand to get you to the heart of the matter. Our key strength is in our global capabilities. We can tap into an extensive network of trusted professional investigators based in most jurisdictions worldwide, enabling us to go almost anywhere a case takes us. Conflict International has decades of experience with a diverse range of skills among our team, developed from backgrounds in military and security intelligence services, as well as practiced lawyers. Visit our website today at conflictinternational.com to find out more about our services. That's conflictinternational.com. Global reach, local knowledge.
And we're back. We are speaking with Lynn Hightower. She's an internationally renowned author. And we've got a couple of questions that have come in regards to writing. And again, I want to take this time to thank those that take the time to send in messages. I know many people in the middle of the day, they're working. And so sending us in these questions allow us to get them asked. And then whenever it's convenient for them to listen, they can listen and get the answer. But many of these questions, I think, also work for other people as well. So this first one reads, I love to write fiction and feel great when I can let my creativity loose. When I do this, it seems as though time flies by. I now have hundreds of pages, and yet, unfortunately, I've not been able to get any one book completed. What advice would you give to help wrap many of these chapters into completed novels to submit to publishers? And this is from Marianne in Boise, Idaho.
Okay, that's a great question, and it's a very normal issue. You're running with your story ideas, and you're full of passion, and there's so much pleasure in that. Okay, so the thing to do is to give yourself some time to think about the storylines you've got, and come up with just a paragraph. If you had to tell someone what it was about, do just a very short 2 or 3 sentences. It's okay if you're not sure. Give it a shot. Don't try and make it perfect. And then make a list of what you love about the novel. If you were going to say, oh, this is a story about, a widow. This is a story about grief. This is a story about a hero dog. When I was telling my publisher about this, that's exactly what I did. I just got rid of all that synopsis agony. And I said, look, this is what it's about. It's about this woman. She's got a broken heart. She's got a hearing loss. Her husband was killed in a plane crash, and it was sabotage, and someone's got her dog, and she's got to go get her dog. And they're like, okay, yeah, we want it. Okay. Why? Because that's the cool, juicy, intriguing part of the story. Okay. So find out what that cool, juicy, intriguing part of the story is. Then take the chapters that apply, put them in one document, and see how it holds up. Think about story continuity. There might be missing scenes, but it's okay. Just, you can't just write. You also have to do some plan work. So take the time to do the plan work too.
Okay, so just to kind of mirror that back, what I hear you saying is that, okay, so focus on what it's about.
Right.
So let's say that you give that and they say, like they said to you, I love it. What do you got? It sounds like in this case, and probably for many of us, well, I've got a bunch of things, but I haven't really weaved it all together because I get this idea and I think this is a great scene and I weave it in, So at that point, is the publisher going to help you with that? Do they need to find someone like yourself who can assist them? What is the step that brings that together?
The reason the publisher went on and bought it is because they had published many of my books. Gotcha. And they knew that I had a full story. And so we went
what I was thinking.
Yes. So it's not something anyone can do. My point is that it's the juicy parts of the story, the storytelling highlights that you want to focus on. I will also say that if you've got too many ideas going, a lot of times you start a novel and then you get another idea and you've got to finish the one you've already started. Okay. Because when you start a novel, it's like a love affair and it's passionate. And then after a while it becomes like a marriage and you got to work it. Right. And then another novel walks by looking kind of good and you want to go off and follow that one. Don't do it. Make some notes on that one and finish the one you've got.
I love it. And that's the first time I've ever heard of writing novels and using dating as an analogy.
Oh, every novel is a love affair for me. Absolutely.
But I love the dating part is that
Sure.
you're in this love affair with this thing, and then something else walks by, and you go, "Oh, that kind of interests me."
Yeah. Get their number, but finish the one you've got.
Gotcha. Oh, I love that. All right. Let's see. I've got another one. But I think before we go jump to that, let me get back to our character. And some of the things that you touch on. And again, when I said in the beginning why there's so many things that I like about this book, grief is something that at some point in time we're all going to go through.
Yes.
In fact, at one time, a partner, a business partner, and I, we were putting out something called a teardrop tree, and it says on it, it says, "Let your sorrow fall on me. I'll cry for you. I'm a teardrop tree."
I love that.
And the belief was that, you know, if you give somebody flowers that's grieving, 7 to 10 days, those flowers are probably going to be dead and they're going to throw them away.
Right.
But if you can give them something else that they're going to have with them, and again, a good book, a good read, something that that they're going to be able to look at and go, yeah, that's kind of what I'm going through, and they can see how other people have gotten through it. I think that there's so much more value in that. So let's talk a little bit about the grief that Junie goes through. And again, for those that haven't read it yet, she loses her husband. And that's not giving much away because that's the way it starts.
Right.
But talk a little bit about, I know that at one point she talks about mourning, and she says, grief is a dark and magical journey.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us more about that perspective.
Well, I wrote this book after my own husband died, and he was French, like Junie's husband. Okay.
Wow.
And I found that the grief was nothing like what people tell you it is. And I also found that there are a lot of well-meant, there's a lot of well-meant advice out there that's actually, at least for me, was really bad. Okay. But I was passionate about telling this story because, as hard as it is, and it is so hard, there are some seriously magical things that happen when you go through something like this. For me personally, my creativity was on fire. My writing was the best it's ever been, and I loved it more than I have ever loved it. And for Junie, she plays flamenco guitar. And the only time she was happy, and like me, the only time I was happy was when I was writing. So I was happy when I was writing, and she's happy when she's playing guitar. And she would usually spend 3 hours every morning playing guitar. And now she would go, and I will also spend 3 hours every night. And I will bracket my day with these hours of distraction and peace and happiness. And that's what I did. And it allowed me to be one step behind my heroine as she went through this. And it meant I wasn't alone with it, and I do think that's one reason we read, so that we're not alone. And so if Junie can handle it, you can handle it. And another thing she found, which is so cool, grief is love. And there's a lot of, we get the impression that the person is gone, it's over, they're severed from your life, it's done. Move on, get over it. That nothing could be further from the truth. And I think that's cruel. I'm sure it's well meant, but it's utterly cruel. And I think a lot of advice for grief is about making everybody around you feel better rather than helping you. And I realized that I still love my husband, and that's okay. And I also realized that all the love I was just sending out to him was coming back, and that there is still a connection if you want it, if that's how you think, there's still a really strong connection. It took me months to figure that out, and it means that it's not an end. It's not like we're going to dinner, right? It's not like I'm sitting down talking to him over coffee, but we're still connected and we're still us. And people need to know that. I've written a couple of grief essays, and I had someone send me a little comment, and what she said was, "I just read your article and I wanted to say thank you. Your last paragraph hit me hard and gave me so much comfort. I recently lost a loved one, and I had wondered if I was imagining the magical moments of connection. But thank you for sharing your beautiful, vulnerable moments and helping me understand how to live with my grief." And that's the point. You don't get over it, you live with it.
Right. And by writing that, you're also making a positive difference for other people as well, which makes it even more beautiful. It sounds like writing this book was incredibly cathartic for you.
It was therapeutic. I think everyone should be writing a novel. I think it's the most therapeutic thing in the world. You can write it for publication. You can write it for yourself if you're inclined that way. Okay. I think when you're in a deep grief, that it opens up a creativity that you should grab hold of. You might not know what it is right away. Give yourself time to find it, but carve out space to think. Right now, I am at the nexus of solitude and creativity, and I have more autonomy to work than I've ever had, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
And you mentioned that you gave Junie a talent of being a guitarist,
Right.
and a very talented guitarist. And it sounds to me like that was, the equivalent to your writing as it relates to therapy. But
Yes.
do you also play an instrument? And if not, you probably had to do quite a bit of research from the standpoint of just guitar, and just to be able to make that very real as well.
I always wanted to play guitar, and I never got past just my parents buying me a book, But I was listening. I was writing one night, and I was listening, and I heard flamenco guitar, and I'd never really heard it before, and it was so beautiful. And so I thought, oh, okay, I heard that for a reason. Junie's a guitarist, new flamenco. I was listening to Otmar Liebert, actually. I'd never been familiar with his music, and it really inspired me. And I started researching it, and I found this very beautiful article, an interview with Charo, who is an absolutely brilliant guitarist. And she was talking about her husband who committed suicide, I think in 2019, and how the guitar is her solace. It keeps her going, and she just wraps herself around it and plays. And I thought, yeah, Junie is like that. And I was very inspired by that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk just a little bit more from the standpoint of the grief again, because it's something that we all go through.
Yeah.
But being that it's such a big emotion to tackle, how did you see weaving it through? Because so far as I've gotten through is that it seems to be it's been converted into a power source for her, and that was one of the things that I thought was so beautiful. But yet I would have never thought in how to write this in such a way that you can take something that for some people is so debilitating and turn it into a power source that keeps them going, keeps them moving forward, keeps them becoming more courageous. share a little bit about that, in either from a real life experience or from a writing standpoint, because to me it seems very difficult to be able to weave something through that continues to project in such an honest fashion.
I think that's such an astute point to make, and I had never really thought of it that way. But in truth, my grief became my muse. I had so much I wanted to say, and so much of it was how empowering I found it. When you go through something like that, there are a lot of things you let go of and you don't care about anymore. They just don't matter. I don't think that's sad. I think that's wonderful. I think that's a superpower. It means you let go of all the noise, and what Junie did and what I did was I looked at my life and I thought, yes, I keep this in my life. No, I don't keep that in my life. And I had I'm from the South. I was always afraid to hurt people's feelings, and that's gone. I'm not mean about it, but no is a beautiful word and I use it regularly. And it gave me the power to create exactly the life that I wanted. And it wasn't the life that other people thought I should be living, because when you're grieving like that, people have a lot of opinions and they mean it so kindly. They do. They want you to be better.
Sure.
But it's not, in a way, it's not about them and it's not their business. It's something you really have to do on your own. Now, I have the world's most fabulous therapist, okay? And I don't even want to think about how I would have gotten through this without talking to him. Because when my husband first died, I was in the grief Olympics. I was going to follow all the advice. I was going to get through it in 6 weeks. I was going to excel. And a couple of months later, I'm sitting in his office and he said, "Oh man, you don't look good. Tell me everything." So I told him everything I was doing. And he said, "Do you like doing any of it?" I said, "I hate it more than I can possibly say."
Wow.
And he said, "Don't do it." I said, "Then how am I ever going to get better?" And he said, "Lynn, you cannot fix grief. Stop trying. You have to learn to live with it." And that was so powerful. It just changed my heart, my life, my heart, my everything. It was like, okay, grief is not my enemy. Grief is my power. It's my muse. I don't know where it's going to take me, but it's taken me some pretty incredible places.
Well, you've done a great job of projecting that onto Junie.
Yes.
What you just said, because that was the feeling that I was getting as I was reading about Junie. So you've done a great job of that. And
Thank you.
And I think that for the people out there, and I know that I'm not giving anything away with that, but that's even more reason to check it out and to see just how somebody can take something that we all look at as such an incredible negative and turn it into a superpower.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we've got another question that has come through. We've got about 5 minutes. Time has flown by us because I'm enjoying this so much.
Me too.
So this one reads, "I'm looking forward to ordering a copy of your book. I did some writing in high school and college, and I miss it dearly. I'm not complaining when I say I wish I had more time to be able to write again. I have a wonderful wife, 2 beautiful children, and a full-time job for which I'm very grateful for. What advice would you give to set up a structure to get me back into writing without taking away from my loved ones?" And this is Robert in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Robert, I'm so glad you asked me that. Number one, you should be writing. It is a decision of the heart. And yes, of course, you must take care of your family. But I think if they love you, they will want you to have this. So let go of any guilt and set yourself up for success with small writing sessions. Find a time in the day. Do you get up early in the morning, or can you say, "Hey, Saturday afternoon from 2 to 4, I want to write"? Set yourself up for success so that it's not a time where you're going to be feeling under a lot of pressure, because you need to be able to think. And you might have to go get out of the house and go to a coffee shop so you can think. but you can do it. And I hope you will do it.
And, if I can add a little something to that,
Yeah.
Robert, is because I'm just so blessed with my own family, and my youngest son, although my youngest is now 26, 27 very shortly. Um, uh, I also have done some writing, and I didn't feel like I had time to do it when raising a family. But one of my sons got very interested in it himself. And so part of what made me feel good was just being there for him when he would ask questions. And just last week, he's writing scripts now, and he contacted me and said, "So Dad, here's what I've got." And he starts reading the script and what it is that he has. He says, "But I've got this one problem." He goes, "This guy needs to be able to escape from here, but he can't do it and look smart. He has to, he goes, Dad, you think of these creative, super smart things that people do to trick people to get things." He goes, "It needs to be dumbed down a little bit." Anyway, but he goes through this whole thing, and so I come up with something, and he goes, okay. Yeah, I like that. He goes, "But I got another thing." And then he'd go into something else. And so now I'm getting the feeling again because of the fact that I'm doing it with him. So my thought for Robert is, he didn't say how old his children are, but if one of your children is of the age that you could do this, maybe start writing with them a little bit and see how that works. If that gives you some of that thing, because now you're sharing something, and you may still go off and do your thing, but it may stimulate something in them, and then they're the ones that are now running off and they're doing their thing and taking care of a creativity desire that they have within themselves. So let me there's a couple of things. Because you just mentioned as far as you being from the South. So one of the thoughts that I had, so one of your character has pretty strong feelings, one of the characters in the book.
Oh, she does. She does.
Yeah. About people in the southern red states.
Mhm.
So about how they're treated. And
Yeah.
you mentioned that you now live in Kentucky.
We do.
Is this character voicing anyone in particular's opinion?
Not entirely. She's very extreme. Okay. But she was inspired by, a real event, which was the 2016 Smoky Mountains fire that roared through Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. And it was a terrible fire. And when it was in the news, I kept reading really disturbing comments about how people in Tennessee deserved it and brought it on themselves just because, well, for one thing, you don't know what their politics are. There's plenty of all kinds of politics in every state. And I personally think the red state, blue state thing is a con by politicians who want us to be at each other's throats rather than holding them accountable. That I do think that. But it was so hurtful to read comments. There was a flood in Tennessee, and people were saying, how can you look at a picture of a mother sobbing because her baby's been washed away and say, "Serves you right"? I think it hurts anyone that says it. It hurts them as much as the person. And so this woman really gets so angry. Okay. She has other issues. You don't get angry and become a terrorist, but this is what fuels her. And that part of it, I can have sympathy for. Yeah.
I get it. Wow. The time has just flown by. So again, for everybody out there, the book is The Beautiful Risk. It is, if you're watching or listening live, it comes out tomorrow. Yes. And the author is Lynn Hightower. I highly recommend it. And so, Lynn, I imagine they can get it anywhere books are sold.
Anywhere books are sold, or you can go to my website, which is my name, lynnhightower.com. And I have links to anywhere you would want to buy it. Any kind of bookstore that's out there, it's linked on my website, and you can go there.
That's great. And again, for those, if you're driving or something, I'll make sure that this information is on our website too at theanswers.network. But again, that's lynnhightower.com. Check it out and then come back on her site or on ours and tell us what you think. Leave a review.
Please do.
All right. Lynn, thank you so much. What's next?
I'm going to have a sequel to this one. I'm working on it right now.
That's great.
Yeah.
Please stay in touch. Please come back.
Thank you.
I love what you're doing, and I wish you all the luck.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And for everybody out there, please visit our archives of past interviews at answers.network, or just subscribe to the show. You can do it through Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, Rumble, Spreaker, and many other popular podcast platforms. And if you like what you hear, please leave a review. I don't understand all of the things with algorithms and everything else, but I know that if you leave a review, it helps us. And by doing that, you're helping everybody because you're promoting things that are positive, things that are out there trying to help people. Please do that. And again, next time, if you're on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, any one of ours, that's again, Answers Network, stop by the page, check out some of our latest shows. If you like them, please like us and spread the word. So for everybody out there, if you're watching or listening, be good human beings and be with us again next week on Answers Network.
You're listening to Answers Network with Alan Cardoza, only on LA Talk Radio.